Next, I'll talk about life course theories, which can sometimes sound similar to developmental theories because they share some of the same principles or ideas about the emphasis on within individual change and longitudinal research. Sometimes we can use the term life course, but doesn't necessarily mean a life course theory, like Moffat referring to life course persistent offenders. I hate textbooks because they will lump developmental and life course theories into the same group. And DLC is a thing, but developmental and life course criminology are separate theoretical frameworks, and some life course criminologists don't like some developmental criminologists and vice versa. One of the things that might be helpful is thinking about developmental criminology tends to be influenced by psychology, and life course criminology tends to be influenced by sociology. So they sometimes have different perspectives on why offending starts or why offending stops. What I would say is that developmental criminology is more useful for understanding the origins and the continuity of offending. Life course theories are more so designed to explain desistance from criminal behavior. Here are some of the key pillars of life course criminology. This paradigm emphasizes historical context, so we need to understand how history and social context at the time that we're looking at a particular individual can influence that person's behavior. So for example, Sampson and Lobb are the most well-known life course criminologists, and their perspective on the development of offending and why people stop offending was based on looking at individuals involved in the war in Korea. And when these Americans returned home, they were beneficiaries of the GI Bill. The General Infantry Bill basically subsidized housing for persons that served in the military, provided education and trades training. We think nowadays about the experiences of men and women in the American military, it's much more negative. We hear about higher rates of suicide, higher rates of intimate partner violence, higher rates of post-traumatic stress disorder. So this is why historical context matters. Being a person that served in the military maybe mattered in the 1930s, 1950s, but maybe now it's more of a risk factor. Another of the pillars is linked lives, the notion that how a person behaves is tied to who they're connected to. And sometimes certain people can help provide social capital that can help individuals step into a job or help an individual find the right university. Just like developmental criminology, your risk factors are age graded. So what matters in terms of predicting offending at age 15 might be different from why somebody offends at age 25. Life course criminology disagrees with developmental criminology because it feels that developmental criminology is too deterministic in suggesting that life course persistent offending trajectory and the idea of cumulative disadvantage. Sampson and Lobb, in their life course criminology perspective, say that human agency allows individuals to kind of pick themselves up by their bootstraps, and through the belief in the American dream, people can accomplish whatever that they want. And I don't really agree with this perspective so much because I think it neglects the lived experiences of certain individuals. You try to have human agency to allow you to stop offending when you have a family member who's addicted to crystal meth, and you don't have a father to look out for you at all, and you have siblings that need to eat, and you don't go to school because you have to go make money so that your siblings can eat, and you are leaving group homes because you want to go check in on your mother. I'm actually describing a real case of a kid that I've interviewed as part of the Incarcerated Serious and Violent Young Offenders study. He was dealing with no father, a mother with mental illnesses, was engaging in prostitution, was experiencing abuse by intimate partners, and was addicted to crystal meth, and she would not eat. And he would be very worried about her actual physical health. So he was living in a group home. He would AWOL from that group home to go check in on his mother, and then he would lose his group home placement, so he might be out on the street for a few days before finding a new group home. When he was under the purview of the justice system, one of the conditions of the justice system, or of his release, was that he had to reside in a particular group home. So he's living here, and he gets a note from his mother that says, if I didn't have you checking in on me, I would kill myself. And so he's worried that his mother is going to commit suicide. So he leaves the group home to go take care of her, And what happens? He's breached his conditions, so he gets arrested and charged with a new offense. So I don't think that life course criminology is appropriately understood that human agency, like rationality, is bounded, or at least how we exercise agency is different depending on the circumstances that we find ourselves in. For persons that are experiencing oppression, their ability to use human agency to stop offending might be limited because they're using human agency in other ways, and we have a finite level of agency. So that's something to keep in mind when thinking about human agency. I do believe it's important, but I don't believe it's something that we all have an equal amount of, or that we're all able to exercise in the same way. One of the key terms that Sampson and Lobb introduced to criminology was the idea of turning point. So focusing on why adolescents involved in criminal behavior would desist from crime in adulthood. And they specified 5 key turning points: military involvement, housing, marriage, children, and employment. So all of these are what are referred to as informal social controls. I mentioned maybe military involvement is not as applicable today, and for these other ones like marriage, children, and employment, maybe they're just happening a little bit later in the life course for most individuals.